Alright, man. You know we had to. We had to see after all those videos that I reacted to on these absolute specimens of creature, we had to see what happened to them. Where are they now? All of the Chris Hansen predators. Obviously, everybody is deserving of forgiveness, regardless of what I think. Regardless of what anybody thinks, everybody deserves second chance, redemption, but but I think we can all agree that that one nigga that stripped naked in the kitchen and then was back again at the McDonald's, I think we can all agree some niggas just need to be put in prison, and he is for sure one of them. But besides him, you know what I'm saying? Besides him, everybody else, let's just hope, pray that they improved on their life and are being contributing members of society. Yeah, let's just watch.
This video will cover exactly what happened to the 6 most notable creeps from Hansen vs. Predator, and we're going to begin by talking about the math tutor Mike Manzi, who's had
Most
his
notable.
life pretty much ruined.
I don't know any of these niggas.
I'm Chris Hansen, no you're not
None of them were
episode. After
in the
arriving at the
videos that I
steakhouse,
reacted
Mike bumped
to.
into Chris immediately before trying to make the excuse that he was simply making sure that the 13-year-old girl was stealing before
He had an interesting head shape.
trying to make the excuse that he
Bit
was
primitive.
simply making sure that the 13-year-old girl was safe inside her house. After desperately attempting to leave, Mike was arrested, taken back to the police station, and interrogated for approximately 35 minutes, after which the episode ends with the explanation that because Mike's discussion was pretty clean prior to the meetup, he was only sentenced to 3 years probation, meaning that he avoided any time in prison and wasn't registered on any unsavory lists. However, this isn't to say that Mike's life has been easy ever since the episode went live. In late 2021, a conversation was leaked with one of the show's...
Yo, that's another thing that like niggas don't really think about. But after what happened with Mr. 445, bro, that nigga was getting stalked, harassed, kicked out of hotels, motels, rejected from jobs, like a whole bunch of shit. Like, bro, the fact that this stuff gets taken to the internet and like blown and like completely goes viral, intention matters. Intention does matter. It doesn't matter whether or not they committed the actual crime or not. It's the fact that what they intended to do if they were not caught. So, with that being said, because of their intention, they for sure deserved all of that shit that happened. But again, what niggas don't like think about is the aftermath of them being on TV, full name and everything. Like, holy. Family members. Imagine your family member, or well, not your, but imagine their family members like watching the show and then they see this nigga on here. They're like, oh fuck it, yep, GG's. Whole lineage is just
was actually
down
Mike
in the
Manzi's
dirt.
uncle, and that there is a part that never aired where Manzi is insisting tonight to let him go because he's known Manzi since birth. This is apparently why Manzi made such an effort to convince the crew to let him leave peacefully, yet his uncle told Manzi the best thing he could do is go through the garage and remain silent, which Manzi obviously didn't do. As a result of the episode, Mike now hates his uncle, which has more than likely led to the decline of Manzi's other family relationships.
I'm sorry, I'm lost. What?
To let him leave Burr. Ed, security Ron Knight, a conversation was leaked with one of the show's editors, who explained that the head of security, Ron Knight, was actually Mike Manzi's uncle, and that there is a part that never aired where Manzi is insisting tonight to let him go because he's known Manzi since birth. This is apparently why Manzi made such an effort to convince the crew to let him leave peacefully, yet his uncle told Manzi the best thing he could do is go through the garage and remain silent, which Manzi obviously didn't do. As a result of the episode, Mike now hates his uncle, which has more than likely led to the decline of Manzi's other family relationships. However, the most interesting thing revealed in the message exchange was that Manzi was an avid watcher of TCAP back in the day, which explains why he recognized Chris Hansen immediately. Mike has since been found on a felony dating site, as well as on Facebook under a different name. Mike has since been found on
a felony dating site.
A felony dating site.
What the fuck is that?
why he recognized Chris Hansen immediately.
What is that?
Since
This is surely the name isn't self-explanatory. Surely it's not a dating site for felonies. Like that just doesn't. That just doesn't. There's no way that exists, bro. What the fuck? Male or female? Build a few extra pounds. Yeah, whatever the fuck that means, nigga.
As well as on Facebook under a different name, where a Reddit user was able to get this picture, as well as apparently have a conversation with Mike, who stated that he gets recognized very often, and that Mike actually seems like a very chilled out dude. On Chris Hansen's podcast, Chris explained that Mike is no longer working in education.
As far as we know, he is not tutoring or teaching anywhere. He lives with
And these niggas be getting recognized years and years after.
A retail job, representing a pretty significant fall since tutoring for some of Connecticut's wealthiest families. However, Mike still got off lightly in comparison to John Dupee, who, as a result of his appearance on the show, has now become homeless. John waltzed into the stands without saying a word, and was so creepy that simply standing next to him was enough to terrify the decoy, yet she apparently had nothing to worry about, as he stated that he was only there to watch the football.
The hell is that
After
haircut?
revealing that John was simultaneously talking to more than one minor, he was arrested, interrogated, and given a notice to appear in court, where he'd be trolled and heckled by the attendees as he pleaded guilty.
And the judge actually in the case had to order the crowd to be quiet, to be orderly, because they had figured out who he was and what he was being accused of, what he was pleading guilty to.
John Dupee was given an 8-year prison sentence beginning in August 2016, although this certainly isn't where the story ends. Only 4 months into his prison term, John's brother and sister were both killed in a car accident, which happened on the very same street where the Sting house was located. And in case losing both of his siblings wasn't bad enough, there are unconfirmed anecdotes that John was also disowned by his parents after the episode went live. He was released from prison on the 24th of July 2018, serving just 2 years out of his 8-year sentence, yet after being released, John was forced to register on a public offender list, which displayed his address as a Connecticut homeless shelter. After 3 years in the shelter, John was able to move into a group house, although in October 2021, only 2 months after moving out of the homeless shelter, John violated his probation in an unspecified way and was sent back to prison for another year and 2 months. Since his release in December 2022, John has been residing in a shelter for recovering addicts, although John Dupee isn't the only person on this list.
Yo, this nigga moves on so quick, bro. We can't like just sit with the amount of information that you just gave us. Holy.
Who locked the door behind him after entering the Sting house, stating that his biggest nightmare was ending up on a Chris Hansen episode. After Josh comes out of the bathroom, Chris is already there waiting for him.
I know who you are. You know who I am.
You niggas are so brain dead, bro. Oh my god. How do all of them know about the show? Like that's being their worst fear, and yet they still go do like
to the station. He'd incredibly admit that this wasn't the first time that he'd met up with someone underage, which eventually helped the court to secure a 7-year prison sentence. After the sting happened, but before Josh went to prison, he was still working as a plumber and would admit to a co-worker that he was very remorseful and would happily take back his crazy Russian ex, then go back to that house with Chris Hansen. On his really bad days, he would talk about how he doesn't want to die alone and that he knows that he'll never have a semblance of a normal life again. Josh was sent to prison a few months later in early 2016 and would serve 3 years out of his 7-year sentence. However, this wouldn't be the last time that Josh ended up behind bars. In September 2020, approximately 1 year after being released from his first prison stint, a post was made to the TCAP forum stating, "Joshua Cologne was convicted yesterday after spending a few months in prison for a probation violation. 4 years jail, execution suspended after 6 months, probation 9 years. This guy will never learn." Josh's second prison term came to an end in March 2021, after which his former co-worker and friend took to Reddit to explain the reason for the sentence. He contacted me after he got out of prison for a second time, letting me know that he'd been framed. Apparently he wasn't allowed to have any pictures of any children on his phone. His sister shared a picture of his niece in a chat that he was in, and he got locked up for it, his explanation. Interestingly, if you now search Josh's name on an inmate search engine, it states that Joshua Cologne is, or was recently, an inmate currently at the Connecticut Department of Corrections, CTDOC, located in Wethersford, CT, leading many to believe that Josh is now back in prison for a third time. But what happened to the wealthy accountant who Chris recognized from the train? His name was Charles Lawrence.
I remember this guy.
Into the Sting house, the following exchange occurred.
No, Chris.
What are you doing? But this is the first time I've caught anyone who I know.
After which Charles was arrested
Who I
and
know.
taken back to the station for an interview. Throughout the interrogation, Charles made the hilarious claim that because of his
Ain't
poor
it so
eyesight,
weird? Or I don't know why I'd be thinking about shit like this. How like humans, over 8 billion of these motherfuckers on this planet, all got different faces. Obviously, there's those few cases where niggas is twins, triplets, all that other shit related, and then you got the doppelgangers. But like, there's always something that makes you unique or distinct. Like, you just don't look like someone else. But doesn't this nigga look like someone you would see, like, just driving? You at a red light, you stop by a red light, you look in the damn car next to you. You could see a nigga like this next to you and just not
read the decoy's age
think
as
anything
18
of it.
Instead of 13.
Every time he was 18. When I got
But
my glasses were upstairs. I'm looking. I thought he said 18. I swear to God, I would never, ever.
there's only one of these niggas.
However, the judge wasn't dumb enough.
There's only
to
one of
find this
these
excuse,
these
who
types of
sentenced Lawrence
niggas,
to 2 years
and
in prison, which he'd served between
I
June
would hope that I hadn't
2016
seen
and
him
2018. Whilst in
out
prison,
in
the
the
Association
open
of
world.
International Certified Professional Accountants, under which Lawrence was employed, confirmed that Mr. Lawrence's AICPA membership was terminated effective May 25th, 2017, because of a final judgment of conviction for a crime punishable by imprisonment for more than 1 year. Chris also mentioned that Charles had a second job as a
Damn,
commercial
you're getting
real
old.
estate agent, and after finding Charles's LinkedIn, it states that he's the president of a company called Lawrence Real Estate Enterprises Inc., which is still active today and lists Charles as the company's CEO. However, Chris did mention on his podcast that Charles had some issues with keeping his license.
I'm not clear as to whether or not he's still involved in commercial real estate. There was an issue with his license after his conviction, after he pleaded guilty.
Although even if he was able to, it's unlikely that Charles would get much work these days given his reputation. In May 2021, a post was made to Reddit explaining that they saw Charles Lawrence living in an over 55s complex, which has been confirmed as true after looking up the address listed on his public offender registry. This page also shows the most recent photo of him taken in mid-2018, exhausting all of the information that we have on Charles Lawrence. However, we've got plenty of dirt on the now infamous Stephen Buchanan, who gained notoriety
That's
for
crazy,
showing up
bro.
to the steakhouse
That's
with duct tape,
crazy
a
as hell.
camera, and various weapons in his car.
Okay.
This was
Holy man, the amount of information that this dude gives you in such a quick amount of time. But all public, I do know that all public offenders have to damn, was the volume that low this entire time? I hope it wasn't low for the recording. Have to have their address for public display. For these niggas though, that shit
we've
could
got
get
plenty of dirt on the
could
now
get
infamous
wicked.
Stephen Buchanan, who gained notoriety for showing up to the Sting house with duct tape, a camera, and various weapons in his car. This was extra terrifying as after arriving at the house, he refused to enter and rather tried to coax the decoy into getting into his vehicle.
Do you want to come in?
Do you want to go?
Can you just like come in and we can chat for a little bit? What do you want to do?
I'll show you around first. You got some food if you want. You want to show you around?
Can we watch a movie?
What about going to the movies?
After being confronted by Chris, Buchanan tries to blame his depravity on the PTSD he got during his military time in Iraq, although despite this impediment, Buchanan still served 3 years in prison, after which fans of the show began to notice that the story he shared with Chris wasn't entirely accurate. A user by the name of Bud1985 took to Reddit in a post reading, "Stephen Buchanan, this took me a good hour of searching through old pics from Iraq, but I finally found it. I served with his turd." Bud continued in the comments by stating, "When he was active duty, he was a tank mechanic. And how do I know this? He was my tank's mechanic. He would do maintenance on it in the motor pool every Monday. He never went on a single mission. He never seen a minute of combat. He may have been through some mortar fire, but that's it." It
Yo,
pissed me off so
how is
bad.
it that just everybody has Reddit? Like all these niggas in these situations just always have somebody connected to Reddit.
When
Like,
I
what
heard
the
him
fuck,
blame it
bro?
on PTSD. The most recent photo of Stephen Buchanan comes from July 2022, which accompanies a further update from Chris Hansen's podcast.
And as far as we can tell, he still lives in Connecticut with his parents. And he's working, driving a large truck.
Also explaining that he was able to have a conversation with Stephen's father.
I called the number we had for Stephen Buchanan, and a man picked up, and it actually sounded a little bit like Stephen Buchanan. And I asked for Stephen. Right away, the man said, "Is this Chris Hansen?" And I said, "Yes, it is." This is why you're calling. I said, "I'm calling for Stephen Buchanan." And the father had the tone of a man exasperated with having to deal with the circumstances around his son. He told me that Stephen has moved on with his life and essentially that he wants to only look forward, and then the senior Buchanan asked that I never call the number again.
But while Stephen has done a pretty good job of moving on with his life, this has been significantly more difficult for Jeff Sokol, who became arguably the most notable predator in Chris Hansen history after bringing a pepperoni pizza to the Fairfield Stinghouse. The iconic episode became etched in YouTube history as Jeff seemed so relaxed about the confrontation that he was only able to focus on his dinner.
He looks a little familiar. That pizza looks fucking whack though.
I want to know a little bit more about you first.
Can I eat first?
After Jeff spent 16 minutes demolishing his pizza, he'd offer Chris a slice on the way out.
Take your pizza if you like.
You want a slice?
I'm good, thank you.
And even after being taken back to the station, Jeff maintained the attitude that he hadn't done anything wrong, according to a source who was at the station with him.
That nigga's dangerous.
He's pretty confident that he was going to be able to get out of this, be able to get a good lawyer and to really take care of his case.
While Jeff seemed confident that he wouldn't receive any charges, this didn't alter his reality, as after going through 3 different lawyers, he'd be sentenced to 2.5 years in prison beginning on the 27th of May 2017. Whilst locked up, the Jeff Sokol episode became so popular that fans of the show tracked down the restaurant from which the pizza had been ordered and began to visit the restaurant asking for the exact same pizza that Jeff had gotten. The restaurant has since had hundreds of positive reviews, many of which subtly referencing the Jeff Sokol incident, and according to an email sent to us by a fan, the restaurant had to eventually ask people to stop asking for the Sokol special, although there doesn't actually seem to be any evidence for this claim. By the time Jeff was released from prison in June 2019...
Yo, niggas, bro, what? Why did that become a trend? A fucking child predator eats pizza while getting interviewed by Chris Hansen? Oh yeah, I want that same pizza that he was having. Like, huh? Yo, you internet niggas, bro. You niggas on the internet be just doing anything as a trend. Like, what the fuck was that? I don't get it.
Millions, leading Jeff to try and change his name legally to Sonny Derek Porter.
Sokol actually went to court and petitioned to change his name to Sonny Derek Porter.
A few years ago, I was arrested.
Imagine you facing a whole bunch of heat, get a fucking name change, and then they put your new name on a Sunny V2 video.
Sting operation,
yeah, you're finished,
trying to meet
buddy.
a girl who was
You're
underage.
never getting a clean
The
start.
Sting was part of a nationally syndicated TV show, Crime Watch Daily, Hansen vs. Predator. This episode is now available online, along with many other troll videos and nasty comments from fans of the show. In the aftermath, I've experienced humiliation, harassment, and embarrassment. One could argue that this was justified, but I've surely lived with much remorse since the arrest. Since my current name will always be linked via a simple internet search, I'm requesting authorization to change my name. I'm working hard to be a better person overall and making a sincere effort to treat everyone with respect. I hope to meet new friends and acquaintances and wish not to be judged based on one gigantic mistake I made a few years ago. I hope to be judged for the person I really am, the person I am today. More than anything, I would like a second chance at a happy and safe life. However, the name change was eventually rejected, which only led to more trolling. It was then
Damn.
discovered that Jeff had been forced to sell his apartment, and according to this Reddit comment,
Niggas can... I'm not gonna go back just because I don't feel like that was a lot of information, but like, niggas can tell you no to changing your name.
which isn't the best evidence.
Is it only
Jeff
if
moved
you
in
have
with his
some
parents
shit
in
attached to
blank.
it?
It seems like
Like
he comes
him?
from a pretty affluent family, so he probably just
I didn't know
merges
that
from
was
his
possible.
parents and stays low-key. The most recent photo of him comes from early 2021, which unfortunately marks the final piece of information we have on Jeff Sokol, because despite being one of the show's most notable people, he certainly kept one of the lowest profiles.
Yeah, it's usually just cap. I mean, when these niggas say that they have remorse for it, you sure as hell ain't have no fucking remorse when you was chowing down on that goddamn pizza, buddy. Same thing with that nigga 445, bro. He never actually said that he was sorry, from my knowledge. I never heard him say sorry and nothing. Nothing. I never heard nothing. But when the nigga was trying to get his name changed, and then he started to blow up on TikTok again, doing TikTok live and shit like that. The nigga, and he did an interview with somebody. He did not seem sorry in the slightest. He had no remorse. So, I mean, you can say there are people out there who are softer and will be like, all right, enough's enough. He's been through enough. He can, you know what I'm saying, have a second chance. But These niggas be lying, bro. They don't be feeling bad in the slightest. They only feel bad once they actually have to deal with the consequences and not any time before it. So, fuck 'em.